That means on?
Great. I'm going to call this meeting of the Encinitas Planning Commission to order at, excuse me, at 6:03 PM. Please, if you have cell phones here, turn them off or set them to vibrate. I'm going to take the same advice myself and just double check. And if you haven't already got one, there are agendas near the door, and there are speaker slips in the rack at the rear next to each door over here. Let the record reflect that we have 4 of the planning commissioners present today. Chair Ehlers is absent, and as vice chair, I am sitting in his place this evening. We start each meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you join me? Thank you. So we start each meeting with oral communications, where anyone wishing to speak on a topic not on tonight's agenda may request to do so by filling out a white speaker slip and handing it to our clerk, Dina, there. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Dina, do we have any oral communications?
We do. We have one this evening, and that is Christine Schindler.
Here, I think your mic's not quite on yet.
Okay. Yep, better?
That's
All right.
better.
Christine
And you can take your
Schindler.
mask off to speak if you need to.
That's fine.
That's okay.
I live in East Encinitas, and I've been to the Planning Commission before, but I think that was years ago, pre-COVID, so anywhere from 2 to 5 years ago. No, I'm joking. So I just wanted to introduce you to a group that I'm involved with called Encinitas Bike Walk. We do advocacy, education, encouragement in the community to try to improve walking, riding, and rolling, and also the use of
Mic
transit.
is not on.
Pardon me?
I don't think everyone can quite hear you. Can you come closer to the mic, perhaps?
Okay, is this
I think it is
better?
on.
All right. So I just wanted you to be aware of Encinitas Bike Walk. There is some intersection between what we do and what you do on the Planning Commission. So we meet monthly. You're always welcome to join us if you want. We're the last Tuesday of the month, currently by Zoom. When we're meeting in person, we meet at Dudek because of one of our members, Brian Grover, has a connection there. I also wanted to thank you for serving on a commission. I think you should get a pay raise. It's been a heck of a 2 years. So thank you for pivoting and for what you do. And just personally, I want to put a plug in that if and when you have some sort of development project and if there's roundabouts in the equation, I just want to encourage you to support that kind of infrastructure. It has many, many benefits, environmental, economical, and it also has a big benefit for both walkers and bikers as far as safety. So I just wanted to put that plug in. And then I also know for myself, an upside of the pandemic is that we've been able to do things online, and it's been very convenient calling into meetings, particularly council meetings, from home, and I know that we're not doing that anymore. And I just want to speak to the idea of having some sort of hybrid setup. So I just wanted to put a plug in here in case you have any influence. I have mentioned it and written to the council because I do think there would be more engagement during these unusual times if we could come in person if we feel comfortable with that or call in from home. So again, thank you very much for being commissioners.
Before you go, if you could share that information with Dina Gay, our secretary, she could forward it to the commissioners, and we would.
You mean our meeting
About the
information?
meetings, yes.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank you very much. So let's see. Are there any changes to the public agenda, Dina?
There are no changes.
So we now move to the main part of our agenda, and I'll briefly describe how our agenda is organized and how you can participate. This information is also available in the back of the agenda, as well as procedures for using audiovisual materials. The remaining portion of this agenda is divided into 2 parts, the consent calendar and the regular agenda and commission reports. Actually, that's 3 parts, excuse me. Speakers who wish to comment on any of the following items are required to fill out a pink speaker slip, turn it into the commission's clerk indicating which item you wish to speak to. You can speak in more than one item, but you need to fill out a separate slip for each one. You're allowed 3 minutes. You may increase that time by having 1 or 2 other attendees fill out a pink speaker slip indicating that they wish to donate their time. 2 donations are the maximum. If you'd like, I'd like to remind everyone that it is important to treat all public speakers with respect. And if there's a large group, I don't think I need to worry about that tonight. First up are the items on our consent calendar. These items are considered non-controversial and routine in nature. All consent calendar items are typically voted on in one motion without any staff presentation, public comment, or commission deliberation. If you do wish to speak on an item on our consent calendar, please fill out a pink speaker slip and turn it in to the clerk if you haven't already done so. Indicate which item you wish to speak to, and we will remove that item from the consent calendar. Any commissioner may also remove an item, and they will be heard individually immediately after the consent calendar vote. Now, tonight's consent calendar has 8 items, and the first 7 of them are compiled minutes from September 2nd through December 16th, 2021. Now, I've noticed, Dina, I have an amendment I need to make on 6C.
Okay.
I think we'll have to pull that. And 6D, I was absent on. That was the meeting on November 4th. Also on the consent calendar this evening is the Fender Crawl Space Edition. And this item has been recommended to be continued off calendar. It's being requested so that we can allow staff to seek guidance and clarification from the California Coastal Commission regarding bluff erosion rates and the safety factors. So I think we could vote on this, well, we'll pull 6C, but I think in the remaining items, we could vote these out with me, the note that I'm abstaining from item 6D. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the consent calendar, accepting 6C.
Thank you. Got a second?
I'll second.
Thank you much. So we call the question?
Do you guys see the voting
Oh,
feature? Is
sorry.
it on there? No?
Sorry. I wasn't here on the 16th,
You weren't?
so I can't vote on that, right?
That's correct.
Should we have 2 separate votings, or how will we
Well-
handle that I wasn't?
In the
here?
past, we've just made a note in the motion. I'll note that you are abstaining from that item. And you said that was September? I'm
And we
sorry.
can actually keep 6C on this motion. The only change was that while Commissioner Ryan was present, she wasn't listed as absent, but she wasn't listed as present either,
Oh, oops, okay.
where
Okay.
she was obviously active in the meeting.
I'll make those 2 changes.
I think we could, if you'll take a friendly amendment, we'll include that item as well.
Yes.
Cool. And the question then, let's get to our voting button.
You don't see the voting? Okay. So that was Commissioner Dalton made the motion, and, oh,
I
there we
think it
go.
was Commissioner Ryan.
I think we got it. Motion passes 4-0 with Chair Ehlers being absent. I don't know what's going on with this. Why does it say no? That is so weird.
I think we've had a technical snafu.
Let's see. Did that change it?
No, I think you were in the right place. I think it just,
It shows on here, motion passed.
this is a job for
But
IT.
why isn't it showing up here?
It didn't give me the,
That's okay. The motion got, here, why don't you withdraw your motion? I think that's, Susan, could you withdraw this motion?
oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And we'll let Dina and staff make it proper.
Okay. Here, look, it's not even letting me do a drop down.
No, but I thought because I had moved.
Well, even though it's not projected on the screen, I have the motion. Thank you.
We have the motion. Should we do an oral vote?
Sure.
Um,
Okay, I'll in favor.
I'll say aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
And Susan?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was non-controversial. Next up on our regular agenda, where items are heard with a staff presentation, commissioner questions, public input, and planning commission discussion. So anyone here wishing to speak on an Item must fill out a pink speaker slip, and there's only one item on our regular agenda. I assume you're all here for the, and I'm looking at the wrong piece of paper there. No, you're all here for the Santa Fe Drive corridor improvements. So we'll get right to it. I think first I'm going to ask, well, actually, I'll read through everything about this. So this project 8A is the Santa Fe Drive corridor improvements, case number multi 4417-2021, design review 4418-2021, and coastal development permit 4419-2021. The subject property is located in the Santa Fe Drive public right-of-way and the scenic visual corridor overlay zone. So in the hillside inland overlay bluff overlay zone, the cultural natural resources overlay zone, the special study overlay zone, and the California Coastal Commission's appeal jurisdiction of the coastal zone. The City of Encinitas is the applicant here. This is Santa Fe Drive, public right-of-way between Interstate 5 and South El Camino Real. So this is a public hearing to consider a design review and a coastal development permit to construct street improvements, landscaping, stormwater facilities, pedestrian walkability elements, and bike facilities in each direction with striping and signage, all within the north and south sides of the Santa Fe Drive public right-of-way, and also temporary construction staging areas. This project has been found to be exempt from CEQA, and we'll start right off. Are there any disclosures from our commissioners? Hearing none, move off, and we'll jump right in with a staff report presented by Associate Planner Jay DeCoso.
Hello, can you hear me? Great. Thank you, Commissioners. Good evening. My name is Jay DeCoso. I'm here to present the Santa Fe Drive corridor improvements tonight. I'm sure you're very familiar with the Santa Fe Drive corridor, a 1.25-mile stretch between Interstate 5 and South El Camino Real. As Commissioner Doyle stated, the proposal is street improvements to this entire corridor length, consisting of curb gutter sidewalk, pedestrian bicycle facilities, intersection improvements, stormwater landscaping improvements, and temporary construction staging areas. The project overall, the intent would be improved mobility for pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicular traffic, while also improving safety and connectivity. The project would also tie into street and pedestrian improvements completed along the Santa Fe Drive frontage of San Diego Academy. That was completed in 2014, and also tie into the improvements currently being installed at the Interstate 5 Santa Fe Drive intersection completed by Caltrans. Santa Fe Drive corridor, as you're familiar with, is a two-way road with a continuous left turn lane from Interstate 5 to South El Camino Real. There's commercial land uses at the Santa Fe Drive Interstate 5 intersection. The most notable feature is the commercial center, Santa Fe Plaza, at the southwest corner of that intersection, and the larger Scripps Memorial Hospital that serves the region, and then smaller local commercial uses at that other corner. Primarily, it is residential that offshoots from Santa Fe Drive. The other big feature are various churches, smaller and limited commercial uses, and of course, San Diego Academy. And sidewalks and bicycle lanes are also located along the corridor, but are intermittently placed. The improvements proposed would connect everything. And public improvements and utility services are available to serve the vicinity. As background, how did this project come about? It is actually the culmination of 3 other CIP projects that were located along the area: Santa Fe Drive projects in general, corridor improvement projects, and the San Diego Academy frontage improvements, all bundled together as one corridor improvement project, so it can be done wholesale comprehensively, as decided by the council on April 22nd. And then a scope of work was proposed, and on August 18th, the scope of work was reduced. The primary feature was removed a roundabout that was proposed at Crest Drive and Santa Fe Drive. However, that roundabout may be reintroduced in the future as a separate CIP project. Public input was robust, with lots of comments received regarding all the pedestrian bicycle amenities, intersection improvements, the proposed parking spaces, the roundabout, landscaping, stormwater, every feature you can think of, walls, trees, et cetera. Staff responded to all the questions, phone calls, and emails. All property owners and tenants were within 500 feet of Santa Fe Drive were notified. And for perspective, approximately 1,400 envelopes were mailed twice to ensure full public participation. To facilitate this project, 2 permits are required: a design review permit. The scope of work in total does not exempt it from design review, which is why it's here before you tonight. And a coastal development permit is being processed concurrently because the project is located in the city's coastal zone, and the project qualifies as a major public works project as defined by the Public Resources Code and is valued greater than 100,000 K, and therefore it is appealable to the California Coastal Commission. As stated previously, the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, which is considered, because the scope of the project is described as cosmetic. They are considered to be minor alterations to existing public streets, sidewalks, gutters, and other similar facilities, including the replacement or reconstruction of existing structures and facilities. Therefore, it's exempt. So now I'm going to pass it on to engineer Matt Wiedelski, who will now discuss the project features.
Good evening, Planning Commission. Thank you. Again, what we've done here with the Santa Fe corridor, sorry if everybody can hear me, we've separated into 2 phases, the western phase and the eastern phase, and roughly the separation point is just east of Bonita Drive there over near Evergreen. So on the western phase, which starts pretty much near Gardenia near I-5 and goes in front of the school, we'll have protected facilities for the bicyclists, and next slide, we get into the eastern phase, we're going back to the buffered bike lane, so there isn't a barrier between the bike lane and the travel way. The protected facility, it does have it. The buffered bike lane is just a stripe. Next slide. 2 of the intersections, the one at McKinnon and then at Bonita, will be modified and improved to be a protected intersection. This is an example of what a protected intersection. We have bulb outs that come out that decrease the distance where pedestrians are in the travelway in an intersection, and it's easier for bicyclists and safer. These types of improvements will be proposed at those 2 intersections. Next slide. Currently, right now, what you can see is there's existing sidewalks in various places along, and there's places where sidewalks don't exist. So the entire scope of the project, as you can see, where we have existing facilities with pedestrian sidewalk, we're going to keep them. We're proposing new sidewalks across from the high school and on the very western section. And then on the eastern phase, a lot of the corridor does not have sidewalks, so we will be adding sidewalks. The only place is on the very eastern section between Crest and El Camino Real. We are just proposing the sidewalk on the south side of the road. The bike lanes are on both sides. Next slide. Proposed bicycle facilities, as we said on our western phase, we are planning to install separated facilities in front of the high school especially, and just slightly east. The 2 intersections at each end of the high school will have the protected intersection features installed. And then when we get to the eastern phase, we change to the buffered bike lanes, which exist all the way to El Camino Real. Landscaping improvements, because with our stormwater compliance, we are going to be installing BMP's best management practice areas and street drainage, so that drainage can be filtered by landscaping prior to being discharged into the storm drain. So in front of the school, we're proposing landscaping to go along with the parking we have. And then in the eastern phase, roughly in the center section of the corridor, the one thing I do want to say is, if you see on this slide, there is a proposed development that has been submitted at 1205 Santa Fe Drive. So the city is trying to work with that developer as much as we can to make sure we both achieve what we need, and if we can, the developer will be helping with that. Again, as you can see, the types of trees we want to have trees along the corridor. We need to install them. When we did our public outreach, one of the big things was people wanted, as they're walking on the corridor and biking, to have some possible shade. So these are the list of approved trees following the guidelines that meet the city standard, and the city arborist that we have has reviewed. Next slide. Landscaping improvements, as I said, in between, when we put our parking in, that's where we're going to have a lot of our landscaping so that the street drainage can drain into these facilities and then be treated in accordance with stormwater. So this is where it would be on the western phase in front of the school and then slightly east of Evergreen Drive. Next slide. There is one retaining wall proposed just east of Bonita Drive. As you can see, the wall, the maximum height is 4 feet, and it's a tan block wall. That's all is needed. Along the eastern phase, mainly we have it in the center section of the corridor, and again, as we said, by 1205 Santa Fe Drive, we're working with that development to try and make sure we both can work together and install something that's adequate and works for the city and everything. And then from Crest Drive all the way to El Camino Real, the corridor is tight, so there's not a lot of room. When we have the bike lanes and a sidewalk, we don't have a lot of space to put any extra landscaping facilities. And then along the eastern phase, right next to Walton Drive, there is another retaining wall for about 150 feet. Maximum height is 4 feet. Block wall, it'll be tan. The parking we have, let's see. Sorry, there we are. For the parking, like we said, in front of the high school, what we want is the reverse angle parking because there is a lot of right-of-way, and that's also where the pedestrian crossing will go. So on the north side, we'll have, and the south side, we'll have the reverse angle parking interspersed with the proposed landscaping developments. That's it.
In summary, that concludes our staff report. Staff recommends approval of the corridor improvements. The project would improve Santa Fe Drive to complete a complete street corridor for the 2.5 mile stretch and improve mobility for pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicular traffic, which is also consistent with the community character. Staff recommends approval of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Do any commissioners have questions or clarifications for either of these gentlemen? Steve?
Could you help me understand the difference between a buffered bike lane and a protected bike lane? Are they both relatively the same width, and why was one chosen? I mean, protected would be preferred. So why was a buffered bike lane chosen for the eastern section?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. A protected facility has a type of structure in between the travel lane and the bike lane. It can be a curb, it could be a fence, it could be K-rail. That's the idea of a protected bike lane. And then next slide. The buffered bike lane has only striping on the road, but there is no physical barrier that can prevent a car from going into the bike lane if it accidentally would veer in, which we obviously hope would not happen. But that's the difference. The protected has a type of structure that can prevent the car.
Yeah, so as I look at your diagram, it seems from the edge of sidewalk, it takes about 7 feet, if I can read those numbers correctly, 7 feet for the buffered bike lane. But it seems to, if you could go back one, it seems like it's still only about 5.5 feet for a protected bike lane. So why would a buffered bike lane be chosen over the protected if it's not a matter of width?
It's not a matter of width, it was a matter of cost, which was the reason when we went back for scoping. We initially came to and looked at protected facilities all along the corridor, and the cost was much more than was able in the project budget, so we had to do some redesigning and figure what we can do to still have a corridor project.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question to that. So the green ballasts that are up along Leucadia Boulevard, what is that considered?
That is it's a bollard that goes into, it can go into the lane that's hopefully separating the bicyclist away from the travel lane.
Is
It's a
that
bollard.
It's not either one of these, then it's not buffered or protected?
Our project in the protected bike lane section will have some bollards installed per the request of Public Works to show some separation visually. So obviously, the intent is to not have any vehicles go into the bike lane, no bicycles to go into the travel lane.
Okay. I have an additional question. Just, this was based on my reading of the documents. There was a question and an answer. I just wanted to clarify. This project does not include any undergrounding of utilities?
That's correct.
Could you show us also the protected intersection diagram again?
Okay. Yeah, the raised or elevated bike track, at the edge of that raised area that the bike is going on, is it a tapered edge or is it a 90-degree curb type edge, or how is that?
What we are proposing at the intersections is basically bulb outs where the bike lane is at the level of the street, and then when it's at the corner, instead of being at the curb ramp, there's the bollards that can separate so that a vehicle cannot cross in there. So it's where the bicycles and the pedestrians kind of wait and do their refuge area, but are protected.
So at that corner of that elevated bikeway, there's no buffer needed.
Well, the concrete bollard, or the concrete,
Still have concrete buffer.
yeah, it has a concrete buffer that's 6 inches off of the travelway.
My question about the protected bike lane, I think I heard you talk about a protected bike intersection and then just a protected intersection. Are those one and the same thing? They're all this diagram.
That's correct.
That's it. Thank you.
And I had a question as well. Jay, you'd probably know this one, or I'm not sure who this is before. I know council had said, was looking to see if we could do anything with the bus stops, which are currently, we're waiting for NCTD to build them, and they're waiting for people to ride the bus. Is that anything in there included in this project? Are we going to have anything resembling a shelter?
Yes, we've reached out to NCTD all during the design. We've sent them our 60%, our 90% plans, and I've been in contact with the personnel over there. We have the ridership numbers. In our corridor, we're showing where the buses come in, and we're helping improve those. We're still working to try finalize what will specifically be, if it will be a bench, if it would be a stop. We still have to get those finite details, but we have recognized both of the bus stops along this corridor, one in front of the high school and one easterly just past Lake Drive. So we are coordinating with NCTD.
Okay, but none of that is actually incorporated into this project as proposed.
The bus stops, the area where the bus pulls in, yes, because it has to do with the striping.
Right, but the details of that, okay, that's
Yeah, there are no bus stop
separate issue, I
amenities.
think.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's look at my little list here. So I think I will now open this hearing for public comment.
I'm sorry, I have one more
Am I
question.
missing something?
I have one I
Oops,
have one more
sorry.
question. Sorry, Kevin.
Sorry, Chris.
That's all right. So on the eastern portion of the project, the sidewalk is just on one side of the street, not on the other?
That's correct.
Is that due to cost, or is that due to the width of the road?
That was width of the road.
Thank you.
Here, since we're in the question and answer phase, the trees that are going in, how big are they? Are these shade trees? I mean, I guess the big question, I can see that they're designed to be shade trees, but how big are the trees we're putting in? Are we putting in 5 gallons?
5 to 10 gallon. I can get back specifically about how tall they're going to be. But the request was to provide some shade, as opposed to on the far west end where the palm trees are, lots of public comment lists. These aren't providing any shade. So we wanted to have trees that can provide some shade.
I'd like to get some, a couple of larger than average trees just to jumpstart the process. I know too many developments, the trees get planted at the same time, they grow at the same time, they die at the same time. We need to stagger our growth. And one way to do that is to start with, just seed it with a couple of oversized box trees. But could be as an added alternate, hopefully. Anyone else? No? Let's move on to public comment then.
All right, excuse me. We have
We have speakers.
three speakers this evening, and first up is Christine Schindler.
So again, Christine Schindler, East Encinitas resident. Can you hear me okay? All right. So I'm very excited about this. I happened to be on a focus group, so I was kind of involved during the process, and I appreciate that. There's a design group, KTUNA, that was involved in this project, and they're very good when it comes to active transportation, bike ped. The other consultant, I think, did the stormwater work. So I'm very excited. I think it builds on the improvements that have already happened as Build NCC plays out with the highway expansion and the improvement for the I-5 interchange. It is, I'm a educator, advocator for safe routes to school, and it's a huge corridor as far as that goes. You have SDA, Ocean Knoll, Oak Crest, and some other schools in the area. So it's going to make it a lot safer for biking and walking, and it's going to encourage, hopefully, more and more reduction of car congestion as more students and parents feel comfortable about using the corridor in that way. So it supports all road users as opposed to just cars. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So this is just semantics, but we use protected bike lane a lot, and personally, I think we should say separated bike lane, because when you're on a bicycle, you're not really protected from vehicles, but it is important to have some separation and some visibility to try to make it a safer situation. And I love seeing the reverse angle parking. That's something we have to get used to, but it's being used in other communities quite a bit, and I think it has advantages. So good to see that in the design plan. And coincidentally, I have a meeting with a gentleman with NCTD next week, because I reached out to him about bus stops and how we can do something to at least have lighting and benches. So certainly I was going to talk about this corridor, but apparently they have 1,800 bus stops that they're looking at, and they know that they need to improve them. So I'll make sure that I mention this particular corridor when I'm talking with them. Thank you to the staff, very well presented, and I'm excited. I use this corridor a lot, walking and biking and driving, so thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Lou Lightfoot.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Commission. I'm Lou Lightfoot. I live at 1402 Santa Fe Drive, which is on the Pinecrest Lane. There's 6 of us in that little private street. I've talked to all of my neighbors, or I've talked to 4 out of the 5 of my neighbors. We all like this. We're all happy we're finally getting a sidewalk in that location, even though it's only on one side of the street. I should mention that if you tried to put a sidewalk on the other side of the street, you'd probably be putting in an underground storm drain system and significant retaining walls. There's a lot of storm drain issues and grading issues with the north side of Santa Fe in that location. So having it on the south side will be great. We all walk. We walk up Santa Fe. We go on Crest on either side into the neighborhood. We do that almost every day. On a personal basis, sorry to see that you took the roundabout out. For a project that's going to enhance pedestrian and bicycle safety, probably the most dangerous part of that whole corridor is the Crest intersection. There's not a day goes by, and I've lived there 33 years, where I don't see skaters, skateboarders, bicyclists, people with baby strollers, walkers, joggers, trying to get across that intersection. And it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel safe trying to get from one side of Santa Fe to the other at Crest Drive. I would urge you to encourage City Council to get that back in the project or get it on as a separate project as soon as possible, because you're really missing the opportunity to significantly improve the safety by not doing something about that intersection. Thank you.
Okay, our final speaker is Scott Schreckengaust.
Is it okay to take this off, right? Hi, I'm Scott Schreckengaust. I live at the southwest corner of Crest and Santa Fe. I've been there for over 20 years. I've personally witnessed dozens of close calls. I've watched 2 accidents live happen. Have also been first on the scene after about 6 others. Crest is a frequently walked street as described. During a normal day, I can see walkers up and down the street. I have seen pets hit, pedestrians and strollers, as mentioned, almost run over by crossing Santa Fe. I've heard literally hundreds of long blasting horns way too early in the morning of impatient drivers going up the hill too fast westbound on Santa Fe, honking at cars safely exiting Crest Drive headed south. I daily watch car after car turning left illegally going northbound on Crest to Santa Fe. This is not permitted because the uphill westbound traffic is going too fast. Twice a year, the sun goes directly into blinding streets and they blind them to cross traffic. I see morning school drop-off traffic trying to exit and speedily go down my street. I am very disappointed with the roundabout going. Over 5 years ago, I was part of a large petition of over 100 hand collected signatures that submitted to the city asking for this issue to be resolved. And I was super happy to see this on the agenda to have a roundabout. And I participated in the community outreaches as well with overwhelming desire for that roundabout. With this large project, re-envisioning the whole entire corridor, removing the roundabout is, in my opinion, short-sighted. It's against the community's requests, and it does not create a safe place, which we can't put a dollar figure on for the life, limb, and property. I did not receive the October 20th public mailing. I'm sure it was sent out. I did not receive it. I received the latest notice that the roundabout was taken off of the scope change, and I want the roundabout. I understand there's situations with costs and reduction and value-based engineering, and I appreciate those, but we need to put that roundabout in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see, I think we move to commission deliberation. I may keep public comment open in case we want to ask questions of anyone here.
I do have a question. I have a question for staff, maybe.
Okay, go for it.
Could you address what is the current plan for Crest, the intersection there? I understand that the roundabout's been taken out, but are there any improvements at that intersection?
Yes, the sidewalks and the bike lanes will come up and signage will be added as you go through the corridor. We are putting some improvements in there.
Is there a diagram or a site plan that you can show us?
I don't have a site plan I can look at.
It's all in the staff report, but it's not easy to find it all. I miss paper plans very, very much. Give me just a moment. I'm going to try and give a page number. Or not. No. Let's see, hold on. I wrote page numbers down. I've learned my lesson the long way. Could we pull up, let's see, Crest, that would be, say, page 293 in the staff report? And my, that's, and my
9 of 40?
my computer just went down, so. $293. Hey, oh, look, I'm back. I had a,
Do you see that, Commissioner?
thought I had the crosswalks somewhere on another page.
Matt, is this
But,
correct? Thank you.
I mean, concerning this intersection, I mean, it's refreshing to hear someone wants roundabouts, because usually we hear quite the opposite. I'm a big fan of roundabouts. They function, they're safe. It's a perfectly logical thing to have at this wide part of the road, at the crest of the hill. It forms a demarcation saying over this way to the west is Santa Fe proper and our little downtown. Down this hill, the long hill, is where El Camino Real is, where another large residential area is. People will want to be coming up that hill, probably going on Ballure, heading over towards the community center or off to school. It should be here. I understand exactly why it's not. I mean, I watched the entirety, this afternoon I watched the August 21st meeting from last year where council debated this, and what did they call this? It was like the value proposition option. Who's our engineer here? I'm sorry, I forget your name, man.
Matt Wodelsky, sir.
Thanks. But we had a special a value name. We were looking for what could we get for the money we have on hand. And the roundabouts are really expensive. I mean, I'm thinking of the one that's already approved for Leucadia Boulevard, and that thing was coming in at like $11 or $12 million. I think this one is probably more level. Can I ask a question of staff? Now, the roadway improvements here, are we altering the level of the road at all? Are we, because I know the roundabouts kind of need flatness.
You're correct. What we're proposing right now is our improvements are going on the edge of the road and adding the sidewalk and the bike lane, but the center lane, the striping, the elevation there, we are not doing anything.
Just going to smooth it out and paint in the road.
That's correct.
And question now, the roundabout that's been removed here, is that on our CIP list? Is that on our capital improvements projects list? Because that's how we'll budget money for it.
It is on the list, and when the budget process goes, obviously, priorities have to be set. What I can say is, it was certainly not anybody happy that the roundabout got moved. It was a tough decision, but we had to get something that was feasible and could actually be built. So I do hear the community and the commission's response, and everybody saying, why was the roundabout taken out? We thought it was the perfect time to put everything into the corridor, but we all live in the real world. We all have to deal with budgets, and this pandemic has been real havoc on various things and prices. So we had to try to get something that was able to be built.
I have clear recollection of just before the COVID lockdown, we were going to pull a big iBank loan. It was going to pay for Leucadia Streetscape. It was going to pay for Santa Fe. It was going to pay for a couple other good projects. And of course, that loan turned out to be ill-advised given the timetable. We didn't know if we were going to go bankrupt. But the city came through, but we decided no loans. So at that point, we decided all our projects were getting by on the seat of our pants and what we have on hand. So it's on the CIP. I'll tell the members of the public here, it's a meeting we have, usually, when is that? January or March? get on the city list. You'll get notification. It's one of the city council meetings, and it's called the CIP, Capital Improvements Projects. And it's when we decide who gets in Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. And the Tier 1 people get money, the Tier 2 people get hopefully some design money, and Tier 3 people, they're just hanging out there waiting. And there's dozens, actually hundreds of projects there, but this is when the real work of government happens. It's like if we put money to it, it happens. The fact that it's on the CIP list means that it's not going away. These things have to be dealt with, and we'll get the money for it next time around. But it does make sense to move forward with this. I kind of started off with general comments. I'm just going to quick move through this because honestly, I love this project. We desperately need it. I know the area very well. Used to live off West Lake and commute to my little store in Leucadia. And I took Santa Fe, I took Ballure, I took Nardo. I would usually kind of nip in through the, behind the high school and come across Oqueza. So I crisscross these streets a lot. And Santa Fe's desperately in need of this. There's only a couple of things that I wanted to push forward. I know staff mentioned we're working with Caltrans on the development next to the highway. And I spent some time this afternoon standing at the corner by the 7-Eleven and the gas station, just looking at the highway. And I watched people try and get across. And our improvements are going to come down. And Caltrans has this beautiful new bridge built. And there's this weird little bulb out between Regal and the highway on-ramp. This is looking west on the, you know what I'm talking about, on the north side of Santa Fe. And it's kind of in this no man's land. They're going to ignore it, we're going to ignore it, and we really can't afford to. I watched a couple of people there already kind of like, where do I stand? It's a perfect place for a safety island, and I think it's a perfect place for some coordination between the two groups. The only other thing I really wanted to talk about was I'm very excited about the mid-block crossing. I think it's time for that. I'm disappointed we weren't able to work up kind of a staggered crosswalk with a wider island. I think I see why. There's a lot of driveways right there. But other than this, it's like I love this project. I haven't really found anything bad to say about it. And I'll pass the mic on to someone else.
I support the project as well. I think they're all great improvements. We'd like to go further, but given the budget, I guess I'm happy to get what we can get out of it. So I support the project.
Yes, so I support the project too. I'd just like to talk a bit toward the people that are disappointed about the roundabout, because I do understand that. I live in Leucadia, and we've been waiting for our final roundabout on Leucadia Boulevard for, Kevin, 20 years. I mean, and it's been in Tier 1. The design is done. It was approved by this commission and sent to City Council, and then there were some issues, and it's still not built. I think it's been about 20 years, maybe. So what I would say is that one of the issues that happened with that roundabout, and I think it was at a planning commission meeting a few years ago, was that in the approval of the roundabout, there was also a push to complete sidewalks all the way up Leucadia Boulevard from the 101 to the freeway. We don't have complete sidewalks up Leucadia Boulevard. Which is, I mean, we have to cross the street. When I walk with my friends and our dogs, we have to cross the street and then cross through dirt and then go around another way. I mean, there's no complete sidewalk on either side of the street in that corridor, which is a major corridor in Encinitas. So I would say that I'm going to support a project that's going to give you sidewalks all the way from one side to the other, recognizing that you don't get the roundabout that you want at this time. And I understand that you have to cross the street to get from one sidewalk to the other, but you will have nice sidewalks. And it will look good. And it won't look like Leucadia Boulevard with dirt and everything else. And sloped dirt. So it's not even a flat dirt. So I support the project too. I would say Go to the city council meetings when they're talking about the capital improvement projects and ask every time that your roundabout be put in Tier 1. Just attend those, and make sure that your voice is heard, that you still want to have that roundabout. Because things are taken off from Tier 1, put in Tier 2, put in Tier 3. I think at the last budget meeting, there weren't even tiers that were talked about. So I just think it's important to always come before the city council and let them know that you're still interested in that and that you want that. So that's just, I would encourage you from my own personal experience going to these meetings and now being here, is just make sure your voice is still heard, that you want that. Okay?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, I think that this is a much overdue improvement on the entire corridor. And I think that most of it looks very well thought through. Tetra Tech did a great job on the design layout. I want to commend them. I do have a few remaining questions about it. I think the roundabout issue would be, I mean, it's lovely, to have it would be wonderful, but cost, is the issue, is what I understand. So, I mean, there are a lot of aspects of a project like this, like, for example, the elevated bike pathway, okay, it's safer, but it costs more than just a regular buffered on the street striped, sort of solution. So I think it has to be weighed, and you have to look at that corridor, and I believe Tetra Tech did look at it, and I from what I see, they have separated that, and they have different segments in their design because of different reasons. What is adjacent here? Are there commercial spaces? Is there a high school? Are there a bus stop? They've looked at all of these different parameters as they laid it out. If we need more money and we really need that roundabout, we're going to have to find more money. That's probably the bottom line for that particular issue. But I do have a couple of questions for Tetra Tech, for the consultant on the project. I didn't see quantification on page L3, the landscape, of the numbers of the different types of trees. And I just am not sure. It says per plan. I'm not sure, is that plan schematic, or if it shows a tree, am I actually going to be able to count up the trees that it shows on the landscape plan? And those are the number of trees. And also it appeared to me, from what I saw, that the western section has irrigation, correct? Is that correct? And then the eastern portion does not. In particular, that I was concerned because there are two-foot box quercus trees, holly oak, I believe they are, oak holly, that will not be getting irrigation for sure, according to the landscape plan. And I'm not sure why, because in my understanding, when you put in new plants, even if they're natives, for the first year, it needs to have water. And I'm just wondering, are we hand watering those? What's happening? Are they going to survive? I worked on a campus where we had a lot of landscaping done, and they didn't connect the irrigation line because the work was put in the appropriate cycle in the winter, rainy season, but then they forgot all about it, and everything started dying in the spring. So the best laid stuff, the best laid plans, the best thought out, but the irrigation is a big concern for me because of what I've seen happen in projects where it's not done.
Let's confirm with staff that that's the case.
Well, if you're asking about the actual, go ahead, man. You were going to. I was going to say that if you're actually asking about the sequence of construction events, I would have to defer to the construction manager at the time, but I can tell you we have various conditions of approval in place, L01 through L06, that require, let's see, L01 talks about the making sure that it's water efficient and landscape and irrigation plans. All required plantings and automated irrigation systems shall be in place prior to occupancy, in this case, prior to finally giving them, prior to stating that the project is finished. Everything will be put in place. And then we're also asking for a final field observation to be conducted and a certification of substantial completion. So, the small answer is I don't know how it fits in the actual sequence as they're constructing everything, but I believe we have some checks and balances and conditions of approval to make sure that it's done correctly.
What I can also say is that, in general, you're correct. The western phase does have a lot of irrigation, and the eastern phase doesn't. But there are areas on the eastern phase, if they are plants that need irrigation, they do have it. The water line goes all along Santa Fe. And we are working with the Park Department and the Public Work Department and the arborist to make sure that the trees we have, if they need water, they'll get water. If they don't need water, long-term, they don't have to be irrigated. Because some of the plants, if they're in the bioretention basins, they can be drought tolerant, but they also have to be able to survive when they get flooded with a storm. So the number of species, or the amount of species and the types you can have, they're not as many you can use. So it's very specific of what types of plants go into those areas when stormwater comes in. But we will definitely make sure that if plants need irrigation, they're going to be connected to it. We're working with our departments to make sure it happens.
Question related on this, is this new greenery going to be maintained by Parks and Rec or Public Works?
How the city of Encinitas does it, if something has irrigation lines to it, the park department maintains it. If there's an area that does not have irrigation installed, then the Public Works Department maintains
All
the
right,
right-of-ways.
thank you. Does anyone else have anything to say on this? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the project.
Second that.
Did you get that, Tina? Actually, I'm not even on the agenda page.
I can hand
So it
put
was
it
a
in.
motion by Commissioner Ryan and second by Commissioner Dalton.
Okay. Okay, so all in favor? Did the voting come?
I know, it keeps going black on me. It's like,
So
where am I now?
weird. Let's see. Oh, that's not it. Well, with the motion made to approve, I'll do a hand vote. Vice Chair Doyle?
Aye?
Commissioner Sherrod? Commissioner Dalton?
Aye.
And Commissioner Ryan?
Aye.
Okay, the vote passes 4-0 with Chair Ehlers being absent.
All right. Thank you very much. Let me pull up my, where I'm at next. So, Anna, do I gavel this one out, or how would I? I'm closing public comment, by the way. A little late, but everyone forgives me. Thank you all for coming for this item. Where are we now? On my agenda.
We're on future agenda items added by planning commissioners.
Are there any future agenda items? Secretary, perhaps? How are things in the world?
Just one, and we're working on setting a date for a joint session with Planning Commission and City Council for amendment, to discuss amendments to the code that relate to SB 9. So that will be coming shortly.
Okay. Are there any appeals in the works related to our work?
There is one appeal that will be heard next week at City Council, and that is the Jack in the Box request for converting the existing non-conforming drive-through to a drive-through with coffee shop. So the applicant appealed the project, and it will be heard next week's City Council meeting.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
I think one of the latest newsletters came out with some information about the El Camino Real, I'll call it a master plan. I don't know what they're calling it, specific plan. It was on my phone. I couldn't read the flyer that came with it. Is that something that's coming up shortly?
That there was a presentation at City Council last week regarding an update, and they are still in the early stages of that specific plan update, so there will be future public outreach opportunities for that process.
Good, thanks.
We'll definitely get to be involved with that. Can't go forward without us. Well, I think that is it for us this evening. I'm going to adjourn the regular Planning Commission meeting of February 3rd, and our next meeting is February 17th, 2022. Thank you, everybody.